Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Bill. We have about 175 parents watching.
That's great. That's great. So yeah, we'll get started in just a few moments, and we'll look forward to meeting those 175 parents. And this will be recorded for the parents that can't. So we'll say hi in just a few moments and get this thing started.
And if I jump up and down, folks, it's because I'm running all these other computers to make all this session work. So maybe I'll try and lower this desk so I don't have to jump.
Perfect. While you're doing that, Rob, I will see that it's 9 o'clock, just switching ourselves over for our first parent live stream session. We know that this is going to be a biggie for this upcoming week and beyond for us, as this is totally new. First of all, my name is Bill Corcoran. I am a teacher in our school board in a coordinator role with our learning technology department. And my colleague here, Rob, is also a coordinator. And he will introduce himself in just a few moments and get us started as well. We know that we want to get right to what we need and that to survive this week with remote learning. So we'll get started. As you can see, we'll reference it a couple times. It won't go away, but there is an ability to ask questions as we go through. And it's the tiny URL that's being covered up right now on the screen, and it will be a bit bigger to show you in just a moment. But first of all, as we gather virtually today from all across the Ottawa region, we acknowledge that we in the Ottawa Catholic School Board are located on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Algonquin people, and we recognize their long-standing relationship with this land, which remains unceded. And of course, at this busy time, we do ground ourselves in a moment of reflection and prayer as we give ourselves strength for the week as we move forward with our families and everything that's going on in our hearts and our minds. So in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God of hope, comfort and restore all who suffer in body, mind, or spirit. May they know the power of your healing love. Make us willing agents of your compassion. Strengthen us as we share in making people whole. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
All right, I will pass this over, like I said, to my great colleague, Rob Long.
All right. Our goal here is to really help you prepare a little bit for what's coming this week, or if you're in high school in the upcoming weeks, as we delve into full virtual learning with your students. I want to reflect back as a board employee that this particular change was thrown into us over the Christmas holiday. And although we've been practicing virtual learning, not all of our teachers have been practicing this fully, or were just introduced to it at the beginning of this epidemic. So plunging back in is certainly a challenge for a lot of us in the board. So as we go through, if you're in elementary, it's 1 week, so it's not an extended duration. And as we prepare this more in high school, there's been days on and off as we've been working through high school. So there is some practice there now that maybe you're a bit more familiar with it. But do remember that this is a change for all of us, our staff, how we deal with technology, how we deal with all the software and communication tools to do this. It is a big shift for everybody, including the teachers involved. So be patient, and before you get really upset or anything, just take a deep breath, and just like the teachers are going to have to do to get through this week too, because it is a big shift for everybody. And we're going to give you the steps to work through. You should have been given a communication. And so we're going to go through those initial steps to help you. And then we're going to ask questions, and we're monitoring questions on here. So if you have any questions, see at the bottom of this slide where it says tinyurl.com/OCSB Tech Questions. If you go there, you'll get a little form and you can fill that in. So we'll remind you, and it's at the bottom of all the slides. So this afternoon, we're going to be going live with your kids. So it's exciting and different. And hopefully we're going to give you all the steps to get there and answer. We'll try and answer all those questions. So get them into that form, and that's where we're going to be looking. And so, Bill, we'll go to the next slide and start through those. You should have received, and if not, there's a possibility you're getting a communication this morning that's going to have something like this in it, which is kind of the checklist we're sending out to parents. And it has many links. You'll see all the blue colored links and things in here. So there's many more things than just a checklist. There's a bunch of things to explore as you go through here. Bill in particular is going to be stepping us through in detail all of these things that I'm just going to introduce to you really quickly here. So there's a little more learning to happen on this call. And so just be prepared for that. We're going to take you through step by step so that you really get a good feel for this. Overall, what we're going to cover, you as a parent and supporting your student have several things you need to do. When working in virtual, the basics are you need to be in a Chrome browser and you need to be signed in. And we're going to talk to you about that. That's step 1 and 2. Pull up a Chrome browser on your device and sign into it. So we'll show you how to do that. Students are going to be accessing their student portals. There's a different portal for K-6 and 7 to 12. Again, you can get those from your school websites if you don't know how to get to them, and they're linked here. All right, so everything is in here in your checklist that you should be getting, and you'll have access to this presentation after. You, as a parent guardian, ideally are signed up to receive messages from school messengers so you can get those communications that the teacher are trying to send to you, as well as the schools. So make sure you are. If you're not sure, you can click on that link and it'll help you walk through that. It's a communication with the school if you're not in already. There's a whole playlist of videos on YouTube that we've put a link to here to help you walk through all these pieces as well. So after you walk away from Bill giving you all the intros and this session, there's a whole list on YouTube you can access to help you review these. And you can review a lot of these with your students too. Google Meet is the core of synchronous learning in the virtual environment. So that's the tool, because we use Google a lot in the school board. That's the tool that you're going to want to really get into and understand more about. So we're going to take you through the ins and outs of that. Your students are going to be signed into their Chrome. They're going to be accessing Google Meet from the student portal, and that's going to take them into those synchronous sessions. There's some etiquette and other things around behaving properly, just like you would in a classroom. When you're in a virtual classroom, and Bill's going to talk to you about that with our Samaritans on a digital road. The core tool we use is called Hapara or Hapara. Yeah, people say it different, so don't worry about it. And particularly within Hapara, there's a thing called a Workspace. This is where teachers put the work for students. There's several questions about accessing accounts and accessing workspaces and how do we do that and how do we submit work. So we're going to talk to you a bunch about that as we go into the details, because there's quite a few questions about that I see up there already. So we'll jump into that and show you what it looks like. You come in as a student into this environment. So you will need access as your student or as your child's account to get into that space if you're going to look at that space. The child's going to log in with their account and they'll have access to the portals and their workspaces. So that's the key thing for them. That's that whole logging into the Chrome, and we'll show you that. When you're in synchronous mode, you do kind of want a space for your kids, just like if you were trying to do this and then maybe you are working at home. If you're on calls and things, it's a bit chatty and noisy. So having that space set up is a really good idea. So if you can, then that's helpful. If you can't, you can't, and that's the way it is. And this isn't, indefinite. So do what you can to make it work in the home environment that you have. All right, next, devices. So many people do have devices that are accessible already in their home because we've been doing some of this. I see a bunch of questions about devices and tablets and things like that. The core is you're going to have to get on Chrome browser and sign in. That's the key piece to get into access the student portals and Hapara. So, and into the whole Google environment. You want to be signed in, and Bill's going to show you how to do that. So whatever device you have, as long as you can get Chrome on it, you can normally sign in, and that's the key thing. If you still don't have a device, then working through the school is what you're going to have to do. Okay, and there are a bunch of questions about that. So you will have to contact your school, and different schools are handling it different and who the contact is, but there should be communication out to you. If it hasn't gotten to you, it should be out this morning at the latest and giving you some guidance on that. Because you are going to be doing synchronous learning, this is another key piece. It does require internet access. And if you're going to be doing video synchronous learning, which is primarily what we're suggesting in this environment, and using Google Meets, it uses video, then you do need a reasonable amount of bandwidth. Most services, even at the lowest level today, will easily cover this amount of bandwidth, which is about 10 megabits per second. If you don't know what your bandwidth is like, you can do a Google of speed test, and those are the words speed test. Then it will come up with a little test, and you can push a button and it'll tell you kind of what your bandwidth is. So if you have issues with technology, the teacher or your applications, the teacher is the first level of support for you. We can really only well support technology that's come from the school because it's difficult to understand and we don't have access to all of their technology. We have access to the school-based technology. So a lot of our teachers are very tech savvy and can try to help for sure, but it is difficult for us to support devices that are outside of the school domains. So just, again, be patient, try and do a best effort, of what you can do to support that technology. Teachers may be able to help. So it is your first point of contact as your teacher. I'm going to cover a couple of the questions real quick, Bill, which are around accounts. So there's lots of questions about, I don't have access to accounts and things like that. I don't know the password. I don't know the email of my child. So go back to that other one on questions just to make it large. Yeah, just to remind them. So if you have questions, put them in here. The upper and lowercase are important. So you must adhere to OCSB in uppercase and the rest in lowercase. That is important when you go to that URL. But for the accounts, the teacher has access and control to all the student accounts. So if you don't know what your child's account is, it is typically first name dot last name at ocsbstudent.ca, but you can contact the teacher. If you don't know the password, you can contact the teacher. The teacher can change the password for your student. So if the student or you doesn't know what that password is, again, the teacher is the person who can fix that for you. So that covers quite a few of the questions. To get access to Hapara, you have to be logged in as your student account. Okay, so again, it's important for you to understand what those accounts are if you're trying to get into those spaces or to help your student get into those spaces. Kindergarten, it's the same scenario. So we've had questions, is there a difference between kindergartens or not? No, you're still going to be using Meets. When you have young children like kindergarten, grade 1, where passwords and things are more difficult, then you are going to have to help them more. So understand, and so it's extra important that you really do know what those passwords and account names are for that to get into those accounts so you can support them. All right. So Bill's going to dive in and I get to sit and just read all your questions. So there's several more slides here. We're going to take you into all those points so you know what Hapara looks like, you know what mail looks like, you know how to get into Meet so that you're comfortable with all these things. All right. So if you have a question, though, throw it into tinyurl.com/OCSB tech questions. The OCSB are all caps. And I'm going to shoot it over to Bill, and I'll only interject when I see questions piling up. All right. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Rob. And feel free to jump in with the questions. I will pause, of course, and make sure that we are being representative of the questions that are coming in, because this session is truly about our parent guardian community and making sure that we and they feel ready for the week ahead. And we know that a lot of this session is similar to what we have presented to our virtual elementary and virtual academy piece, but we know this is only scheduled for a week according to our ministry. And we want to make sure you have the tools, like we said, to move forward. Rob did mention that that your teacher, your classroom teacher, is the first line of support. And when we're in the middle of a Google Meet, Sometimes it's easy if something's not working, and it is stressful and it is annoying. It could be upsetting, of course, to reach out. But remember that in that moment, that the classroom teacher is also teaching. So try to find an appropriate time during that class session near the end, maybe, or send an email if it isn't paramount in that moment. And of course, the school, like Rob mentioned, is the support for devices if you need it. As Rob mentioned as well, here is the tinyurl.com OCSB tech questions. We are trying to monitor them as we go through, and we'll address the most we can. As this is being streamed via YouTube, it will be accessible afterwards, just in case we move a bit too quickly and you want to revisit it. Plus that checklist that is coming out via the schools from our LT department for parents that Rob has already shown is going to be paramount of support for you, so that you can get the access to the support you need. Okay, so first thing I'm going to show you is a link to our samaritans.ocsb.ca site. I'm not going to go through the whole site right now, but with our partnership with CSPA, our Catholic Parents Association, we work with them very closely. They're a great organization that supports parents and getting the information you need. And so each month in their newsletter, we highlight some tools, and Samaritans is always one of them. It's our digital citizenship program created by the OCSB to support our community, and that includes our parents as well. So if I clicked on the samaritans.ocsb.ca site, it brings me to this website right here. And I'm just going to bring you to the home page, just so you see. If I clicked on there, it looks pretty busy when you first see it, but I'm only going to direct you across the top into parents and then the student use of technology. The checklist that Rob showed you, that's being provided, like we said, from the schools, talks about things you need to do to get into Google Meet and Hapara. This is the other questions we get from the parent community, just regarding student accounts, which has been mentioned about the password reset and the classroom teacher being the key piece there. And when we see reset, maybe they don't have their password yet, so it does need to be provided. The G Suite for Education, privacy and security policies that I'll ask Rob to jump in just a few moments, but everything that we use is in compliance with so many levels of government and policies that he can speak to a little bit in just a moment. And then it just gives you a little bit of information about the student portals, and then information about Chrome profiles that we're talking about, Hapara Workspace, and then part of this is a restricted mode of their YouTube account. So this is a little bit different than the checklist, but I just wanted to highlight that here is where our curriculum is under students. And then most specifically under parents, there's a what is Samaritans on the digital road. And in here, there is different levels of curriculum that we're going to. And I will speak to quickly in September, you should have received a responsible use tech agreement from your school. It would have come home in a paper format copy. And from that piece, it just talked about what do I use with technology, how do I use it. The only difference now that we're in a virtual environment is that your classroom teacher, when they meet with your child in their meet, is going to come up with some classroom expectations that are virtual now. They would have already done so for their class, like how do you reach out and know that you want to say something? How do you act when you're on a computer versus in the class? Those type of things are going to happen probably today when your child logs in with your classroom teacher. But just know that the student use of technology in the OCSB is information on here that you can use for this piece. But before we move on with the actual tools that you need to do, I just want to throw the safety and privacy piece over to Rob, because we do get questions about that.
Yeah, we often get questions from parents just about security around data and who owns what when we use Google. So all school boards use either Microsoft or Google, basically. So those are, no matter where you go, it's going to be one or the other. And in both cases, we have worked with the Ministry of Education and lawyers to actually enhance the legal agreements on the education offerings from both parties. So for the Google one, what those education extra legal agreements mean are that we do own all of our content. Our content is not being scanned, and that when we remove our data, it's permanently removed. So those are, and we do have policies around removing accounts for students, and we have to have retention periods and all these other things that are ministry driven. But yes, just to be clear, we are very concerned about these things too. And, there's lots of media around these things, but we do have stringent legal agreements with Google. And we, as a board and ministry and through the privacy commissioners, feel comfortable with what has been arranged with these parties. Bill, I'll answer a couple of questions right now because we're getting a bunch. And a lot of them are around devices and access. And so some of them are around tablets. Can you use tablets? You can use tablets or any device. We recommend Chromebooks because they work really well for the environment that we're in. They have good security controls around them. They update well. They're very virus secure as well. So we like them. If you're looking at a device, because on the Chromebooks you can download Android, which is part of what we do use within our learning environment. We use Android apps on top of web-based applications. Then those are touch-based. So we like touch-based Chromebooks as our first choice as a device. Keyboarded devices we recommend over tablets because it is easier to use full screens while you're keyboarding versus a tablet with a half screen. Tablets with keyboards are better than just tablets because at least you get a full screen access. But the interfaces are different and it's not our first recommendation. But for the short term that we're in right now, you could probably get away with it. People are asking, I don't have Chrome. You can use other browsers. Edge is probably the next best, but you can use Safari. You can use, even Opera. There's almost anything will work, except the easiest thing to do is because of Chrome and its capability to sign in, which I believe Edge has now too, that sign in capability is something we use to allow for single sign-on access to many applications. So that's in particular why we recommend Chrome. If you use other browsers, you can normally access the applications we're referring to, but you may have to sign in individually to them. So that could work. There's several questions around this area, so I'm hoping that answers those. So you can use other browsers. It is more difficult, but it should be accessible. You just will have to sign into each item because you're not signed into the browser. I think that's all of it. Somebody asked about Staples. Any Chromebook, we have a deal with Staples because they always post a reasonably priced, useful Chromebook. Useful Chromebook to us means flip, touch, 4 gig minimum memory. We recommend a hard drive within of 32 gig or bigger. So that's kind of what we're recommending as a base device. All right, Bill, sorry, keep going.
No problem. I know definitely all valid questions, and there's definitely with the devices where, like you mentioned, Rob, we're kind of surviving with what we have in the short term because it's today, but also people are planning ahead and having these very valid questions as well. In our school board, the Chromebooks are prevalent. You may have a PC or Mac at home or a tablet, and we'll make sure that it works for you this week and throughout this piece. Okay, thanks for that, Rob, and going through those questions. It's going to be kind of like that because we want to be responsive to the questions that are coming through to the people who are on here. So this is just more about the account information and moving through. So the key thing, this is a little bit about the Chrome profile. So right now, there are some situations in a Chromebook, but a Chromebook does both of what I'm about to talk about. So a Chrome profile versus being logged in to into your account, your Google account or your Gmail account or anything like that. So I'm just going to open up a Google because I find it's very simple to kind of show it this way a little bit. So first of all, I'm in a Chrome browser. And I'm currently on a PC. If yourself or your child was in a Chromebook, you wouldn't see both of these options because they would be logged into both at the same time. So the first thing here is that I just went to google.ca, and right here, I'm not in my browser. I'm actually on google.ca. And when I click here, I'm just logged into my OCSB account. So I'm only logged into my account. I'm not logged into my Google Chrome browser. And that's where what Rob mentioned, that sort of single sign-on piece when your child goes to the student portal and clicks on those icons, And then it doesn't kind of get confused as to which account is being used at that time. We do get a lot of feedback through our teachers and from the parent community that a lot of times people will log in here, log out, log in, log out, and that you're really just logging in out of accounts. You're not keeping them separate from each other via Google Chrome profile. So what I mean by that is up here, actually next to the three dots, you can see that here's kind of closing the browser. And here's my image again. And if I click on it, you can actually see that I have multiple accounts open. And it's just on the slide deck, there's a picture here that you will get afterwards. You can see that Rob has taken a screenshot of his, and you can see that he's got multiple, in this case, students. We used test student accounts. Those are student 17. And you can see that there's a personal and there's different accounts that you're signed in and out of. For the purpose of this, we would recommend in Google Chrome using the sign in feature of the browser, where you can sync is on, and then you can add other people via this this manage people. So instead of signing in and out of accounts here, you're actually going to add an account here and keep yours and your child's, if you're sharing devices, which is common, accounts separate. So when you're sharing it, they're truly in their account. And what will happen, and if I open up another student or another account, it's actually going to open up a new Chrome window and keep them completely separate. So you're not even going to be in the same browser almost. You're going to have like two browsers open on your screen. So that's going to be important when we talk a little bit about Hapara and Hapara highlights a little bit later on. So the key thing is here is that I actually have two Chrome browsers open. We call them Chrome windows. And I will introduce to you student 17. So I'm actually logged into two accounts at once through this Chrome profile. So I think that's a key piece here. And this is very prevalent when you're using a PC or a Mac. Being signed in on Chrome, if you downloaded the app on a tablet and an iPad, you would still need to sign in and out of that browser or kind of change your profiles. So that's a key piece there when we move through it. So it's all about keeping things separate. So your child's account is separate from your work account or your personal Gmail or your family Gmail account. So that there is on the checklist, there is that Chrome profile video. Because I didn't really model it 100%, but the video on the checklist is there, and it's on this slide deck as well moving forward. Okay, so I am going to flip it over to Rob, to the student portals, and then we're going to get into the crux of Google Meet and Hapara to finish off because we wanted to keep the most relevant components there. So I think we got a good screenshot here, and I will show on the screen when I model with student 17 about what it looks like in live form and where to get it. But if you just wanted to speak to the student portals as it's there, because we mentioned them a few moments ago.
Yep. Hey, everyone. So the student portals we mentioned are set up for K to 6 and 7 to 12. So you can see on the left and right, the two different portals. And if you don't know how to get to them, the best way to go to them probably is just to go to your school website. And right at the top of your school website, and Bill's going to show you later, you're going to pop into them. On there, you're going to find all of the resources, not all, most of the resources that your teachers are going to be using to support learning within the synchronous and asynchronous environment as they're working on things. You can see they're categorized in some cases by math or literacy or creativity and design. And there's quite a few more in the 7 to 12 environment that you'll see. We've done this to make it easy for kids when they come in and they log in to a Chromebook, or they come into Chrome and set it up and they go to the portal. The login, if you're on a Chromebook, forces the opening of these portals directly for the students. So it makes it very easy for them to access things like Meet at the top or Hapara. So, and Bill's going to walk you through that. But basically, these are set up for easy access. Again, with reference back to the signing in of Chrome that Bill just touched on through profiles, and I touched on it earlier. If you're signed in, then all these things are easily accessible and they just work. So that's the bonus of signing into the actual Chrome environment, is that when you click on these, you just get into them right away and you won't be challenged with another login credential. So it's much easier if you do it that way.
Thanks, Rob. And it does sometimes when you're trying to access, if you're signed into the Chrome profile yourself, but you log in under this one, under your students, that's where sometimes the access to the softwares that we're trying to get for your child get blocked because you're in Chrome, but your child's being logged under the account. So we're just recommended everybody be up in the Chrome profile and make sure that the accounts are representative of who's going in. Okay, so Google Meet, there's a couple of things. So right now, since Rob and I are teachers, but we're at the board level right now, we have a fake student. We call him a fake student in the sandbox. The sandbox is a place you like to play, and the student is called Student 17. So you should see it being dragged in here. And this is just a different Chrome browser, a Chrome window being opened. So you can see that actually I'm still logged in as me over here, but I have another Chrome window here with student 17 being logged in. I've kept things separate, and I think that's going to be the message that we're talking about for this week with your child is we're keeping things separate. So right now, this is an example of a K to 6 student portal. There is the 7 and 8, 7 to 7 to 12, I should say, portal. For this purpose, I have this one up, and Rob did mention that I've pulled up a school website, and this is gua.ocsb.ca, but it could be any of our schools in our system website. And you can see that the student portal is clicked here. And when they click on it in their student account, they should have access as well. If they're logged into their Chrome profile and they log in, it should even pop up the student portal for themselves just as a launching pad for them right off the bat. You can see across the top here, there's lots of different things that they're going to be looking on. But for today, this is the first thing. This is the first takeaway. So we've allotted the next 20 minutes just for the two main hitters for this week. One is Google Meet. Your child has to get onto Google Meet as part of this sort of synchronous remote learning week. We know that. And the other piece is, well, how's their work or learning activities going to be shared? And the examples we give as part of that is we know that every grade level, whether it's kindergarten or grade 12 or grade 8 or grade 3. And the expectations for just this week for those students that are supposed to be heading back to school on the 11th is going to look different. But the first thing that we talked about was getting logged into your Chrome profile. So the student is logged in to their Chrome profile in this browser, and they're logged into their account. The thing that they need to know basically, and again, what they need to know is that there are multiple ways to get into Google Meet, but our recommendation, because we are concurrently this morning working with our other colleagues in the LT department on Google Meet and ensuring things are set up in specific ways to communicate to the teachers and the teachers therefore to you. But just know that if your child's been invited to an event, to a Google Meet, this is the simplest way for them to get in. And of course, always follow the instructions from your classroom teacher on that. So if I'm student 17 and today is today, and we are about to log into Google Meet, first thing I would recommend would be to get to the student portal and then locate the Google Meet icon right here. So the Google Meet icon is right at the top row of the student portal. And if I click on it, it's going to be great because what we like about this is these are all examples. So it may be one event. It may be if you're 7 and 8, it may be multiple events, or it could be 2 events, depending on what the teams look like and the schedule looks like for today. And again, Monday might look different than Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. But for example, what this is showing you is all the events that your child has been invited to by their classroom teachers just for this one specific day. So that's why we really like clicking on that Google Meet icon on the student portal, because it doesn't bring you to their calendar where you can kind of confuse the days. It really just has what is relevant for your child for that day. And even though I've given 4 examples on here, you can see the different times. Like I mentioned, you might only have 1, 2, or 3, depending on your child's grade level or the expectations of the classroom teachers or their schedule. So it's going to look different. We've tried to give as much examples as I can. So step 1 was Chrome login. Step 2 was student portal. Click on Google Meet. And step 3 is going to be find the relevant meeting that is there for you. And typically if it's passed, it will be passed, but you can click on it. And when it clicks, it's going to prompt a couple items. And I'm not going to end up joining because I'm on the other call. You can see the camera's starting, but I'm going to turn it off right now, and I can turn off the mute. But right now, you can see that this child is setting themselves up. It will activate their microphone and camera. They can turn it on and off, and then they can join now. So this is the simple step of them being able to join in, but they won't be able to join in until close till the time and when the teacher's already in the meet. So they may be kind of in a waiting room type thing when they get here, saying waiting for the teacher, and they're not going to be in themselves. So they've gone to Google Meet, and when you're ready, you can click join now, and it will join the meeting. And then
Bill,
yeah.
Do you just want to highlight that button to the right of the camera?
Yeah, perfect. And that's where, yeah, the next piece we're going. So right here, you saw that I turned the camera off. And it's the camera starting. So there for me, you actually, from my previous presentation, you didn't see that I had a whole bookshelf behind me, and that because there's a couple features in here, and it does use a bit of bandwidth, but it's not too much. You can change the background. And so depending on where your child, as Rob mentioned, you might have your child in the living room or in the kitchen or in their room and different things like that. So there is a different piece where you can blur your black background. So right now, when I was doing my presentation, you saw me as this, and there are some, your children will want to go maybe on a vacation and take a few minutes. Your teacher will probably give them a few minutes to click around because they're going to want to. And so you can see that currently I'm on a beach, and this just takes the background out of it, which is great, and just gives a lot of people a different sense of ease because it's not your house or your room or in the background. So it's quite okay from that standpoint. And so thank you, Rob, for showing me that, or reminding me of that, of course, because I do use it all the time as well. Perfect. So I'm just going to back out of that. So that is the first part of Google Meet. And student 17 would be logged in. And a lot of it today is just going to be about etiquette, about ensuring the students and children are logged in and making sure that they're going to be okay for the next 4 days in that elementary K-8 panel. And it will look different from each grade level, as I mentioned, depending whether you're kindergarten or 3 and how much you use the tools and so forth. So this is just a couple screen captures of Google Meet and what we've been doing, and the Chrome window component that we've tried to reiterate. And then the next piece, and maybe I'll stop there for a second, Rob, and just see if there's anything regarding just that component, the Google Meet component, and then we'll jump into Hapara, which will give us probably about 10 minutes left for questions in our dedicated time.
Yeah, there is a few questions about Meet actually. So can you use the Meet app? The Meet app, again, as long as you're logged in, and you come into the Meet app as the student, then yes, you should be able to use the Meet app and see all of the events that are for that day. So often if you're on a tablet, or even if you're on a Chromebook and you download the Meet app, in either case, or you're on a phone because you don't have a larger screen, that will still work. So you can definitely use the Meet app to do that. You just need to be in as the student. The notifications, some parents are indicating they haven't seen notifications yet of their meets for today. So if you popped into your student's account and you've clicked on that icon and you say, oh, I don't have everything set up yet today. So we're doing this at 9. Well, principals across our school board are talking to their teachers just to make sure that everything is being set up today. So, check back in there at, let's say, just after 11 or so. Hopefully everything should be in place for the afternoon. They are to send out, it is their job today to make sure that they do send out a link and put up those meets so that you will see them by this afternoon. So do check back in. Right now, all those teachers are in a meeting. So they're not doing it right this second, but they are in a meeting and they're going over all these things. So after that meeting, you can expect them to be busy making sure all these things are in place, okay? So those were kind of the questions around Meet. So again, somebody just said, I don't see them yet. Well, the teachers are in a meeting right now. So give them a chance. Like I said, this is new to everybody. We got to give everybody a little chance. But after their meeting, which goes till 10, you should start seeing these roll before this afternoon. So do check back in. Don't worry about it yet. Do check back in. They should show up. And a couple questions, just do we have access to this deck? Yes. At the end, you'll see a link to this deck, and we'll leave that up so you can get access to it. That's all I got.
Perfect. Thanks for all the great questions. It's much appreciated. And yeah, we're concurrently working with our teachers, with the rest of our LT crew, and the principals are working with their staff right now, just to make sure that there is not similarity, but it is, a very streamlined approach across our system so we can best support, and so that our messaging here aligns with the messaging that you should be receiving soon if you have not. Okay, so the next step here is, Google Meet. You may or may not get information or learning activities in Hapara. The great thing about this tool is that most of the educators in our system have been using Hapara already. So there shouldn't be much of a transition. But again, I will emphasize that depending on your grade level and panel and so forth, it just looks different of what those activities might be. So I'm going to give some examples in just a few moments of what that means. And it may not be something that your teacher brings up with your child in a Google Meet today, but over the next 4 days after today, it might be something that this is where you might find something where a video you might watch, or just a little clip where it has them learning about shapes. That's what I mean by video. And then it might also have a Google Doc that they have to do a reflection in, or something like that. Again, the possibilities are endless because our educators are awesome, and they're going to give you things that represent their group and their learning at that time. So I'm going to bring student 17 back over. And I'm just back here at the student portal for K-6. And again, in 7 to 8, it's and 7 to 12, very similar. And so right now I'm going to highlight the Hapara student dashboard and workspace. So right now it leads you to a student dashboard, which houses the workspaces. So when you, as your child, are logged into their account, the key thing again that you'll hear from us is their account, and you click on the workspace and student dashboard icon. So it's just loading in. And first of all, what you'll see is you may see a lot of information in there. You may not see any information if it hasn't been used very much in your child's account yet. But the key thing is this is called the student dashboard. And it does give you a couple things that allows you to go through. And you can see that there are some workspaces here. I'm eventually going to click in this virtual live stream workspace that I've created for the purposes of today's session. On the left-hand side, you can see that it defaults to Workspace, and it defaults also to all of your classes. So I'm going to click in here, and this, instead of saying CC training, this is actually going to say the class code and the school of your child. So they'll be able to, might say SCI for science, might say science. If I click on it, it's going to, you can see that there's different, it really narrows it down. And that's what I like about it. So you can see that I'm clicking pretty fast, and I was just able to toggle between those four classes. In the virtual schooling, we would really highlight the to-do list, but over 4 days, it may not be very prevalent. It may not be prevalent for a kindergarten aged student as well, but you can see, I'm just going to show it because it's there. There are some things that are due, that are overdue, that have no due dates. And that would show up in here. So it might say in January 22nd, that type of thing, that there would be something that you would need to have done for that standpoint. It's just handy because you can see if your teacher has put a date to be considerate of, it would show up here and you would narrow it down, and that's okay. But for the purposes of this week, this sort of Chrome profile, Google Meet, and now Hapara Workspace component. This is sort of that triad of what we just want to keep things simple, just what you need for this week. And so I'm going to click on the virtual parent live stream workspace, and this would have been shared from a teacher to me. I'm in a student view, remember, and this is an example of what a workspace would look like, could look like. And the key thing is could look like, because every teacher might be using it differently. If from your experience, you probably know that to be true already. Typically, what you would see is up to 4 columns, and they can be named differently, but typically there might be goals or learning goals. There might be a column for resources and a column for evidence. They might have changed that word evidence to share your learning or show your learning or something like that. For today, and it depends again, like I said, from where your teacher is putting these activities in. But I put a couple in there. One might be one for kindergarten grade 1 level, where they would say, during this, afterwards you might access this and listen to a song. But they probably will do that during their Google Meet. But it might be a reference for you where you could open this up on your not synchronous time, which is not what we're mostly having, but it's there. And then the ability to possibly go for an activity. Here's a shape scavenger hunt. And you'll notice that the word start is there. So right now I'm logged in again as a child, as a student, and I come in and there's the word start next to these. In this case, if it's the word start, there's a couple things up here. So typically I wrote the word sample task, but there would be a better title. There's also a typical indicator, whether it's individual evidence or group evidence. So individual evidence means I can click on this and it makes a copy for myself as a student, and I can start working right away. In the group evidence task, it means that I can start it. It will make a copy for the group, and it will be collaborative amongst those students, those students in the class that have been assigned by the teacher. So I'm going to just keep it simple, and I'm going to click on start. And what it's going to do, it might take a few moments because it is making a copy, and you will see that it will open up a slide deck that has been created, and the template could be simple, it could be more elaborate from your classroom teacher. And here is an example of a simple activity that I put together for this one, just to keep it simple. And it might be something that in your house you draw a picture of or take a picture of, or that you have something that has three sides or 3 points, and that so forth. Just going back to the workspace itself, if your teacher did require for you to do that and submit it, there is a submit button here. Of course, everything here is just a Google slide. Once you get through Workspace, a lot of these items just become a Google Doc or a Google Slides right here. So there might be some activities this week that involve Google Slides or a Google Doc, and the teacher has access to those through Google and through Hapara. And the other access point here would be that it is here and it is accessible in Hapara Workspace, and it'll always be accessible except if you hit submit and it says, do you want to send work to the teacher? Yes. It will lock it into like a comment only mode, like a view only mode. And so if that happens by accident or on purpose and you decide you want more, that's just a conversation with your classroom teacher. But in a lot of cases for this week, there's not going to be a lot of things where you actually need to send it. But again, I'll reference that the classroom teacher will give you instructions on whether they would want it submitted or not. So I'm going to say no in this case. And over here, there might be a link to an article. What was school like 150 years ago? Well, I can guarantee right now they're all within 6 feet of each other, and they don't have masks, and they are in a physical school building for this week. So it's nothing like it was 150 years ago, and we're all virtual. So there might be an article that the child would click on and read and use tools that they might be familiar with. And then, of course, here's another example of something they might start and put some reflections on. But again, I can't get bogged down in all the different ways Workspace could be used. And it's a very similar template in here, but it could be a Google Doc. So just some examples of Workspace, and then kind of coming back and resetting it ourselves is just at the top left here with the different colors in the top left that represent the Hapara icon. So I'm just resetting myself, and I'm going to pause because I know we always have questions, because sometimes it's new for people or they just have different questions. So Rob, what's going in about Hapara and or Hapara Workspace from your angle?
So we have a lot of parents that are doing this from high school, and we've made references to 1 week, which is the elementary span versus the high school span. So everything we're talking about applies to both. The high school folks are going to be off for a few weeks. So they're definitely going to be in this a little deeper, and you're definitely going to be seeing work and other things coming home, almost in all cases through Workspace. There may be a few exceptions to that, but all that Bill just showed is definitely going to be applicable to high school. They'll just go in. When they go in, it knows that they're a high school student, and they're going to show up with a high school portal. And that portal looks very similar to the elementary, but different and more. And across the top line, again, you're going to see the Meet icon. You're going to see the Hapara icon and everything just the same. So absolutely applies to high school just as much as 1 week in elementary. So in both cases, here's a high school portal. So it's intermediate, high school, and you can see the Hapara icon's the first icon on the left. And then you'll see the Meet icon is right in the middle, very similar. So it's all there for the high school students as well. A few comments on accounts and things and working in Hapara. Can we do it offline? So Google will run almost everything it does offline. So when you have an assignment and you started it, it's going to be in your child's Google account for them to access. So they can absolutely do all of that offline if they need to be offline. If they're accessing other resources that are on the internet, then of course they're going to need to be on the internet for those. But even if they're on a Chromebook, it has a hard drive. You can run all your docs and everything offline. You don't have to be on the internet all the time, even if you're on a Chromebook. But a lot of what we do and the resources we use are internet-based. Just be aware of that. Also around the meets and stuff, they're asking, like we're doing, are they going to record these things? And it's up to the teacher if that's recorded or not. If there's real issues as a parent that you're having because you only have so many devices or your internet is not cooperating while you're both on meets or whatever, it's something you can discuss with your teacher if they can record or not. So they technically have the ability. It's a discussion between you and the teacher if that's going to happen or not. They aren't all by default recording everything they're doing. I can tell you that because the sessions are long. They're in synchronous sessions all day with your kids. So recording all day may or may not be the most useful thing to do. But again, if that's an issue for you, then definitely have that discussion with your teacher. If you don't think you have an access to the portal and things, and you've just tried to do that maybe while you're on the call, all students' accounts can access the portal. You as a parent, if you're going in with your own account, you haven't signed into Chrome, or when you go to the portal, you haven't logged in as a student, then no, you won't be able to get in. You actually have to log in with your student account to get into those portals, okay? So if you tried it another way, it's not going to work. You need to know the student ID, which is first name dot last name at ocsbstudent.ca, and their student password. The teachers control those. Okay, so if you need to know what they are, again, it's a teacher conversation. All right, I think I caught us up mostly on the questions.
Well, it's perfect. We did mention we put questions at the end, but it makes more sense, as we always do in these sessions, to kind of address them as we finish that topic. So that's perfect timing. And yes, definitely, I had on my a post-it note here that as well, that for some, it would be beyond the 5 days of this week, of course, and maybe the to-do time frames and the familiarity with Workspace should, in a lot of cases, already be there, because it's something that in August and September, we really have pushed, and over the last 5-6 years with our system. So in a lot of cases, it may be newer to you, but in a lot of cases, it's not as new for our students. It's just the Google Meet and the synchronous online component is new, whereas the Workspace is something they are familiar with as part of the Google environment. Okay, so I think I was going to throw it over to questions. You did, and we stopped there. So I think the last component just has to do with kind of Hapara and the Chrome profile last piece as well. So I think you mentioned we were caught up on questions there, Rob. There's nothing that's come in over Hapara, because we'll finish off with a little bit of highlights, just supports. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I just want to kind of look up the student right here, student 17. I'm going to move them off my screen in just a few moments. So we talked a little bit about about Hapara from the perspective of the student. And there's almost an equivalent view for Workspace from the teacher level, but there's a lot more that Hapara does for a teacher tool. And in a lot of cases, we've mentioned Samaritans on the Digital Road, which is all about supporting our children, or supporting our students with becoming better digital learners. And over time, such as even in K to 6 with their emails being fenced in, that means that they, even if it's you, their parent, and you have a Gmail, they're not able to email out, and vice versa, emailing in. Whereas grades 7, 8, we start relinquishing a little bit more of those fencing in features, and support them in being good digital online learners, and what to do, and being very critical about what they're sending and receiving, and what they're acting on, and so forth. And that continues all the way to 12. But as part of this, there is a tool in Hapara that teachers have access to, that you can see if we had a bunch of littles, or any students that's with us. Sometimes you just don't need to put a link into a workspace and have all the students go to a workspace. Sometimes, wouldn't it be nice if just that link opened up for your child on their screen? And there is a tool that actually can do that we use, called Hapara Highlights. And that involves the students kind of coming in and having links, and the ability to support the children. So I'm gonna show you a little bit about that. So I'm back to my teacher view, and it's gonna log in, and I'm just gonna click on one of the links and go to a program called Highlights. And so this is why we use this for learning. So like I mentioned, some of the examples are, we can open up a link up at the top. And sometimes an assessment, we would want to say, okay, we really want to kind of understand, and it may not be this week for some, but for some, like we mentioned, for the high school student, for the older students that are going to be on for a longer period of time, this complete virtual, even though they might have been flip-flopping days and that so forth, are something that we need to have access to. And if we are kind of doing assessment in a certain way, well, maybe we don't want to go them to a Google Doc where I share them study notes or so forth, or that type of thing. But for the purpose of today, your teacher might be able to open up a link. So that's great. If I'm sitting here as a teacher and I want everybody to, like, oh, let's look at this article, let's look at this something, I can send this to all the students that are currently logged in into their Chrome profile and are online during a certain time of day. So Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. Not after that, not on the weekends. We teachers, we don't need to do that. But in terms of the 8 a.m. being the earliest early start school, and 4 p.m. being the latest late finish school, I may be able to open up a link. Sometimes in class as well, you can say pause screen. So when everybody's virtual, it's kind of the equivalent of, okay, pencils down. Everybody needs to kind of eyes up here a little bit, because it is hard when we're all online and we have the computer and the keyboard in front of us to kind of maintain a focus. So they might pause that screen if everybody's online, and it won't be pausing the Google Meet screen. It'll just be pausing the ability to go to different browsers and so forth. But typically there might, what I've heard from the virtual components, that they might share a link out. And so the last thing we're going to show you kind of before we address any last questions is here. I'm just going to click on this other icon, and I'm just going to refresh, and you can see that the teacher, this is why we wanted to be transparent now that we're in a virtual environment, that it's not a live session. What the teacher is able to see is the current tabs that are open for that child in their specific Chrome profile browser. So that's why we talked about keeping things separate. We're not seeing it live like a TV. What we're seeing is the tabs that are open. So you can see that Workspace, what was school like, the student portal, and different things right here are exactly representative of what that is on the student screen. And if anything was very like an emergent where it needed to be closed for some reason, the student could, but that's not, the teacher could click on the close out button and do that if they needed to. The only thing that, from that standpoint, what they're able to see is a static current screen. So nothing that's live. So you can see that that's all they can see from that student standpoint between 8 and 4 on a school day, Monday to Friday. And it's static. Nothing can be seen. But we do let, this will be kind of the other reminder is that if your child went off and was taking a break or having lunch and you didn't log out of their account and you clicked on a tab and you wanted to check your own email, it might be something where that's why we've emphasized that keeping things separate pretty often as well between 8 and 4 Monday to Friday. So this is a part of our transparency of a program called Highlights. We can show you all the positives. It's not a tracking tool, but it is something that is part of our feature set as part of this. So we just wanted to be transparent about that and making sure that Chrome profiles and accounts are kept separate. All right, Rob, I think we're hitting our time and we've addressed most of the questions, but I know that there are probably more, a couple have come in during this time frame. So we'll kind of address those as we look at our hour time frame coming up and thanking people. But let's answer a couple of those questions and then we'll do our thank yous.
So one of the things maybe Bill will pop into as well as just calendar, because we're getting some questions about schedule and stuff. So we don't like the calendar view, especially for younger students, can be more complex for them. For high school students, it's a great way to see what your schedule is for the week coming up on meetings, because often teachers will schedule a whole week of meetings coming up. So if they go into the student portal like Bill's showing you, you can click calendar and it will show you, depending on the view that you're looking at. And right now, Bill's looking at a 5-day view and you can see all the meetings coming up. So it is a way to look at that, but they may accidentally, especially if they're younger kids, in the top right there, you can change the view and it may just be one day at a time, or they may throw up a whole month or whatever it is. So they do get confused sometimes if they're younger kids, but it is a way for a parent also to go in and just view the calendar and see what the teacher has set up. But that's why we recommend that Meet button. It just shows today. And so it's really easy to deal with today and say, oh, my next meeting's here, here, here. And so that's why we showed you that. So that's something you can check. Again, teachers are in meeting until 10 today, which is just getting out. So although they were sent messages to get prepared, they were in this meeting this morning to talk about getting ready for this afternoon. So we're going to give them that time. Over the next 2 hours, they're going to get everything prepared, and you are going to see these meetings popping up. Your teacher's your key point of contact. Don't email them yet. Okay, give them a little time. They're just getting out of the meeting. Let them get set up. And then, if you're still stuck on things, then, maybe if you don't know your accounts and things like that, you can send a message to them and say, hey, I really don't know my students' account access, especially if it's a younger kid. Any of the older kids who can, grade 3 and up, easily have been typing in their own passwords and everything for a long time. Your student should know, or your child should know, what those accounts are, and they can share those with you directly. And if they can't, then that's when you need to ask your teacher for help. Okay, there's a question to zoom in on things. Okay, sorry, it's the end. So that was right, just went in. So anyway, they'd like us to zoom more. So when we do it tonight, we'll zoom more. And there is another session tonight at 8 o'clock for parents that couldn't make the morning one. Hours. The other, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but highlights, we do get questions about it because we can view snapshots of students' screens. And again, those students have to be logged in to a Chrome window for it to work for the teacher. And Highlights has many useful features for teachers to use, because they can send things to kids, they can shoot them out websites to open up, they can lock them in for testing, they can do things like that. But parents are worried about them viewing other content. Be aware the student has to be logged into Chrome for this to work for the teacher. So again, parents talked about not having Chrome and things like that. It's a very useful tool. Chrome runs on every device. We highly recommend it for the learning environment. You may not want to use it for whatever other environments you have. That's fine. But for the learning environment, it actually works really well for what we're trying to do. So if it's only being used by the student for learning time, that would be appreciated, because it is the one that works best for the learning environment. And I think that's, okay, my student grade 9 cannot access Workspace in Hapara. So if they're logged into the student portal, Hapara should open up for them. And if not, then the first point of contact is going to be the teacher to understand why. But it is, if they're logged into a Chrome window and they go to the portal and hit Hapara, it should open. It is set up for all students in the board already. It's not something new. It's been set up for all of them. So that should work. If you've done all that, please touch base with the teacher just to double check first. And I think that's it.
Yeah, I've been scanning. You've done an awesome job, Rob, about kind of compiling the questions as we've gone. So well done on that. And we're a few minutes over. So I think we'll take this moment to thank everybody that's joining, and we'll kind of stay on for a couple of moments to see if any questions pop on. But for all the parents and guardians that took the time out of your busy schedule in this busy transition for all of us into remote learning, thank you for taking your time to be with us today, and hopefully we're able to sort of kickstart you in the right direction so that we can get you the support after this, so that your child has the best experience over this time frame as well.
And we're going to show that last slide that has a link to the slide deck. And if you have any other questions, certainly we can try and answer a couple more, or hop on tonight because we'll pull those questions and answer them tonight as well. But here's the slide deck for you, so you can go through all those things. You should have had a communication. If you hadn't, you should get in the next 2 hours with all that checkup list and everything for you. It is a great list to go through just to review all this stuff and to look at the how-to videos again that Bill mentioned, and it's on that checklist. So the how-to videos really walk you through all these pieces because I know we went through pretty quick. Like Bill said, I appreciate your time, and I know this is challenging for all of us. So take your time, hopefully take a quick look at this. Hopefully this helped you. Go through the checklist, and I know we'll make the best of it over this week and the next few weeks if you're in 7 to 12. Take care, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll leave this up for a couple minutes.
Thanks, Rob.